Thank you, Jerry. And Joe, have a lovely off day, the last off day of the season, and enjoy it in the Bronx. The Blue Jays will wrap it up, as you said, with 3-day games starting on Friday. And by the way, major kudos on behalf of a minority group. Major kudos to the New York Yankees for scheduling that Friday game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Friday at sundown is the start of Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day on the Blue Jays. It's the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, and the New York Yankees have more than a couple of Jewish baseball fans. So the fact that they would schedule that game early to allow their fans, to allow the Jewish fans to come and enjoy that game is a tremendous move on their part. All right, so it's time to Blue Jays talk it up. We don't have a lot of time left on the network. We have a special guest here that I'm crazy excited about. Andy Kindler is here, a wonderful comedian, an actor, and just everything. The man who has delivered the State of Comedy address at the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal 22 years running now. But I'm not putting him on during the network because we don't have enough time. So what I will do is sneak a couple of calls in before we have to drop the network, and then Andy Kindler will join us at the bottom of the hour after, of course, he reads the disclaimer, which is the reason he is here. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Blue Jays lose 10-7 to the Boston Red Sox, but Teoscar Hernandez goes deep again. 6 homers in the last 6 games as a Blue Jays rookie record for both home runs in the month of September with 8 and RBIs with 20. And I believe that is a Blue Jays rookie record for RBIs in any month, the 20 ribbies. And that's something else. Also something else, though, that needs to be noted, and I don't mean to rain on the Teoscar Hernandez parade, but it requires being noted. Teoscar Hernandez has struck out 28 times and only walked 4 times. So in a month, that sticks out too. Sam in Hamilton, you're going to be the leadoff man on Blue Jays Talk. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, first about that Yankee game on Friday. I didn't know that. So it's cool to learn about new cultures and stuff.
There you go.
With the recent stuff that's going on, it's always great to get involved with other people's culture.
I'm here to educate, Sam.
Yeah. Now, about Teoscar, obviously I know you've been kind of putting a little cold water on it, and I understand from your perspective, but again, I remember in 2008, Jose Bautista pretty much did the same thing. Maybe not the strikeouts, but the home runs. So as much as, you want to cool down the hype train, I'm kind of getting hyped about him.
Well, look, it's not unreasonable to get hyped. It really isn't. But I just think that this is something you need to remember and you need to keep an eye on. And the reason that, Jose Bautista, look, and I said it yesterday, that Pat Gillick always used to say that September is fool's gold and not to believe what happens in September. But sometimes Septembers wind up being a thing like Jose Bautista's was in 2008 or 2009 when he hit 10 homers. But Jose Bautista also had a 339 on base with a 257 average. He had 11 walks in 125 plate appearances. He was walking once every 10 times basically, which is a sort of thing that you look for. Hernandez is not doing that, and that's why I'm pointing it out, and that's why it stands out.
Yeah, well, true. That's all true points. But would you take if his career was kind of like Joey Gallo's, like with a low batting average?
Oh, absolutely, I would.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Anyways, this is gonna be my last time calling. Unfortunately, I can't call on the weekend just to with scheduling stuff with me and my family. So I gotta say, this has been a tremendous year. I listen to Jays Talk every night, or if not, on the podcast when I get up in the morning. Sometimes I listen to it when I play MLB The Show, that game that I just missed last night. But yeah, so I gotta say, all your callers have been great this year. A lot of fun. Not a lot of controversy this year. It's been a little tame in the last couple of years. I can point out some topics that I remember.
Yeah, let's not stay on the happy stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, great year, Mike. You're one of my favorite sports broadcasters. I honestly look up to you. I met you at a couple pitch talks, which is fine. I joined Leafs Jays Raps fan page this year, which has been tremendous. I've met new Blue Jay fans. I remember one time, and this is just a quick story. One time I was at pitch talks in Hamilton, and some guy actually came up to me and said, "Are you Sam from Hamilton?" And I was like, "Wow, really? People actually listen. People actually pay attention to the callers talk."
Absolutely, they do. Sam, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're out of time, and I don't mean to cut off your last call. And you're saying such nice things, you're going to make me cry. But the clock is our enemy, as it always is. Thank you, and thank you for all the calls throughout the season. Absolutely, a valued regular caller to Blue Jays Talk. Jays lose 10-7 to the Boston Red Sox. It is Blue Jays Talk on the Sportsnet Radio Network.
Here's the 1-0 pitch. Breaking ball slammed to left field. Up it goes toward the Green Monster seats. There she goes. Jose Bautista has just hit a 2-run home run, his first since September the 8th. Give him 23 and give the Blue Jays a 3-0 lead as those numbers continue to mount against Rick Porcello.
And if that brought a tear to your eye, that's okay. That may have been the last home run Jose Bautista hits as a Blue Jay. It was his first since September 8th, and he scored a run, obviously, because he hit a home run, and that's, what happens unless you're Gabe Kapler. And that run moved him into second place on the Blue Jays' all-time run scored list, breaking out of a tie with Vernon Wells. The Blue Jays fell to the Red Sox 10-7. They still take 2 out of 3 in the series. And I don't have time to take a call here, but if you are on hold, stay on hold, and we'll get to you in the local portion eventually. And if you're not on hold, you can get on hold. You know the phone numbers. Blue Jays lose at 10-7. Postgame show is brought to you by our Ontario Honda dealers. This is the Sportsnet Radio Network. That's going to do it for us as far as the network is concerned, but we're still on locally on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and sportsnet.ca/590 until 11 o'clock. So you can call in and you can Blue Jays Talk it up. Andy Kindler is my guest. So rare to actually have a guest on Blue Jays Talk, but when we get them, we get the big ones. Andy Kindler's here. Paul Simon has done this show, Meatloaf and stuff. Yeah, you're in select company. And the reason Andy Kindler is here is because we were going back and forth on Twitter for a while, and one of the things he said was that he wants to read the disclaimer at the end of the program. So, Andy Kindler, the floor is yours.
Am I doing it from the
right from the
listening?
Top? Yep.
You've been listening to Home Hardware Blue Jays Baseball, brought to you by Home Hardware. Here's how. This copyrighted broadcast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership or the Sportsnet Radio Network.
How'd that feel?
I was nervous.
Is this something you wanted to do your whole life?
It's something I've always wanted to do, but it was nerve-wracking for me.
Well, I'm glad you got through it.
I'm not in my wheelhouse.
Oh, that you sounded pretty good. That's very wheelhousey. Andy Kindler will continue with us at the top of the hour. The Blue Jays are off tomorrow. It's their final off day of the season, but there are only 4 days left in the season. And when they pick it up again, it will be in New York for the first of 3 day games. Remember, tune in at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday afternoon. The Blue Jays open with the Yankees. It'll be Joe Biagini and Masahiro Tanaka. For Jerry Howarth, Joe Siddall, Tom Young, Vikan Paladian, Mark Boffo, and Andy Kindler, I'm Mike Wilner. Bye-bye.
Teoscar hits a fly ball deep to left field. He has done it again. A mammoth drive. There she goes over the monster and monster seats. Teoscar Hernandez with yet another home run here in Boston. He had 2 last night. That gives him 8, 2 runs across, and the Red Sox lead is cut to 10-7.
And that's the way it would finish, 10-7. But Teoscar Hernandez, 6 home runs in 6 games. And Blue Jays fans getting awfully excited about him. And I understand your excitement. But just remember, September. It's September, and September is September. But, for someone who is probably planned on starting next season in AAA, he is certainly changing that conversation with the way he's hitting. I'm Mike Wilner. This is Blue Jays Talk, and I'm joined by Andy Kindler, who you just heard read the disclaimer on the network afterwards. Andy's in town for Just for Laughs, and thank you so much for coming here.
Oh, thank you. This is so exciting. I'm so nervous. This is not in my wheelhouse, and I'm so afraid I'm going to do my DJ voice. I used to do a 70s DJ voice. Coming up with a half hour, giving away some Aerosmith tickets.
It's funny because first of all, I consider myself to be a huge comedy geek. I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm thrilled that you're here. It is sort of funny the way that the worlds intersect, right? Musicians want to be athletes, and
Absolutely.
athletes want to be musicians, and the same thing with comics. Like you guys want to do what I do. I know I could never do what you do, but there's so many comedians who, as part of their routines. Hate when I hear people say routines.
What's wrong with routines?
It just sounds like someone who has no clue what they're talking about.
Sketches would be worse.
Yeah, sketches.
I think routines is totally current.
All right. I was thinking I should probably say as part of their act. But there's so many sportscaster things that happen in comedy, right? Or the radio bit that you did, that George Carlin used to do, the wonderful Wino Radio.
Right.
John Caponera. And Will Ferrell used to do Harry Carey. It's like you guys sort of want to do this, and we want to do that because we're trying on our own to be funny. But it is amazing how the worlds intersect.
Well, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I was a huge Mets fan, so I know this is Lindsey Nelson and Ralph Kiner and Bob Murphy.
Yep.
And so my friend Jeff Stein and I, we would sit. I don't know. We had nothing going on, I guess, but we broadcast a whole fictional game. It wasn't even like we were looking at a game and broadcasting it. We made up our own game. And when I was a kid, I would be in my backyard. My parents said for hours saying Andy Harrison comes up to the plate, because I always thought I didn't want a Jewish name when I was a kid. I always wanted to be Biff or Henderson or Harrison. And then my parents would see me, and it's an inside, and Harrison hits it long, and then I would run out to the back of the fence. I did that for hours.
That's amazing.
Until I got into college, and there were other ways to enjoy myself.
Other pursuits, indeed. And I have these vivid memories too of walking home from school, and I hope not out loud, but at least in my head, doing those same sorts of game reports. The Blue Jays did this and did that, like I had heard Tom Cheek do on the radio. He was our guy. Tom Cheek did the first 27 and a half years, every game, Blue Jays baseball, never missed a game, 4,306 games in a row until he got sick and unfortunately passed away. But he was our hero, and so I did that. I did that same stuff.
Well, I got. Then I would also become obsessed with broadcasters in general, because Monday Night Football, the radio used to be Hank Stram.
Okay, yeah.
And he would do this thing where he would forget, he wouldn't say in the sentence what he was saying. After the sentence, he would go, talking about the Chiefs. Like he would leave that out. He would add it on as if that helped.
That's incredible. So, I mean, are we sort of good fodder for you? Or is it just the guys like the Harry Careys of the world that are so easy for like a Will Ferrell to do? Well,
Harry Carey, everybody Will Ferrell made a meal out of an entire dining portion out of him. No, to me, I saw it differently. I mean, like when I listened as a kid, sportscasters were, to me, that was show business. I don't see the difference between the two. And in fact, if I could get any information in my head currently, like for example, good to hear about OH. Oscar Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez.
I got that wrong too. But I don't have any current sports. I know some things, but when I was a kid,
but you can tell me what Ed Kranepool's batting average was in 1969,
and I could tell you Dennis Rybant. I could tell you I went to pitcher's house, Jerry Arrigo.
Okay.
He was a relief pitcher. I knocked on his door, and he was surprised to have two kids come to ask for his autograph.
That's amazing.
And I also wrote a letter when I was to Matt Snell when he was in the Air Force Reserves of the Mets. And I'll never forget, he wrote me back a letter saying, best of luck in all of your future undertakings.
That is wonderful.
On Air Force stationery.
Wow. And the Blue Jays, the pitcher who pitched the bottom of the eighth inning, the last pitcher of the day for the Blue Jays, Chris Rowley, is in the U.S. Army Ready Reserve. He's the only West Point graduate ever to play in the major leagues. So there's this whole military thing that's going on.
Me too, with West Point.
Yeah? No. You're the only West Point graduate to play big league baseball?
I got started to sweat just as you were saying things.
We're with Andy Kindler, who's working Just for Laughs. The festival Just for Laughs 42 is in Toronto all week, I think, and you've got shows starting tonight all the way through Saturday at Second City just before midnight.
Yeah, I'm hosting what I call the alternative show, which I started in Montreal in the late '90s when there wasn't a lot of alternative comedy. Now it's I think it's anachronistically named because there's so many alternative comedians.
Everything.
So, but it's branded. I can't. With the branding, you can't fight it.
What would be what would be alternative comedy now that you would go look at and say, all right, well, that's well outside the mainstream. So since there's so many people who do operate outside that traditional, hey, this, what's with airplane food? Have you ever heard these television commercials nowadays?
Why do they call it toothpaste? You don't glue anything to your teeth. Well, that's the thing, is that in the 90s when but in New York and LA, there was this alternative comedy movement. It was really the comedy boom, which I don't think anybody listening probably remembers. There was a big boom. Every city had more clubs than ATMs, and so then that imploded. And there were too many comics, and there were too many positions, not enough comics, and everything became very homogenized. So comics like me, we couldn't play regular mainstream clubs. And in fact, back in the 90s, they didn't even advertise, they wouldn't even advertise in the 80s and 90s. They go, you wouldn't even know who you were going to see. Just come down to the comedy club. Well, it's like going to the movie theater. Come down to the movie theater. Well, what's playing? You like movies, right? So, but now it's a lot different. Now I think most comics, I would say, there's still hacky comics,
sure,
but alternative now would be, like if Andy Kaufman was alive now, he'd still be as alternative as he was then. I would say like someone like James Adomian, I would say is alternative in the sense that there aren't a lot of people doing impressions, and he weaves it in with his personality.
Are you suggesting that Andy Kaufman is in fact not alive today?
I don't think he is, and I've heard that guy Bob Zamuda.
Yeah,
I've heard him talk, and he's not fooling me. He's still trying to. He goes on shows and still tries to, because he played the other character.
Yeah, I can't remember that guy, the character's name, right? That everybody thought was Andy Kaufman.
The lounge singer guy.
Right. We're looking at our two 20-year-olds on the other side of the glass. They have no clue what we're talking about.
In fact, I did a show recently. Big J. Okerson did a show where Zamuda came on and did that character.
He looked it up. Tony Clifton.
So he's still doing Tony Clifton.
Who was supposed to be, everybody thought was Andy Kaufman.
He was Andy Kaufman originally, so unless you don't believe it.
I don't know.
No, he was, yeah. Well, but the thing is, when Andy Kaufman was on Taxi, he did insist on having a separate contract.
For Tony Clifton?
For Tony Clifton.
Wow. That's really something.
So, he was out. He was out there.
Yeah, definitely. But brilliant comic. We're with Andy Kindler here, and we're not talking about baseball that much, and I apologize for that, but I don't really care. It's game number 159. We did 158 Blue Jays talks. We're going to do 3 more Blue Jays talks. But let's talk a little bit about sports, because I mentioned Ed Kranepool. You mentioned you were a big Mets fan, and I think for everybody listening, for every sports fan out there, nothing is ever as great in sports as it was when you were like 12 years old.
Well, that's literally true, because in I think it was 63, my dad was a plumbing and heating contractor, and he bought 4 box seats to the Jets. You could buy the whole stadium back then. It was when the AFL started. And of course, we realized later that the field level, you really want to be a little bit up higher. And then we bought 2 seats up in the grandstand. So I was a Jets fan from the first. I saw almost every home game through till they beat the Oakland Raiders on the way to the Super Bowl.
This may be a stupid question. Did they play at the Polo Grounds then?
The first year, the Mets played the Polo Grounds, I believe, and then they moved to Shea Stadium.
The Mets, but the Jets, where did they
play?
The
Jets, I think, also maybe played the Polo Grounds. They were the Titans.
Oh, okay.
And then they came to Shea Stadium, which was not a good stadium for football, because I remember Joe Namath getting so upset and throwing the sod down on the field. But I was at every single game, every home game, and we couldn't believe that year. To me, it was like God had parted the whatever he would part to allow the Mets, Jets, and Knicks to all win. And miraculously, the Mets, and I think miraculously the Jets, because no one thought, January of 69, but it was a 68 season. And then the Knicks won 2 times. So I really did say to God, or for those of you other people, to secular, however you say it, I did say, that's all I'll need the rest of my life. I won't ever ask for anything again.
Man, it would be great if sports fandom was like that now. You get like a maybe, I don't know if the Cubs even got a year of grace from their World Series championships last year. By the way, if anybody wants to call and talk to Andy Kindler Why not?
Why not, right?
416-870-0590. We'll see. Star 590 on the cell, 1-888-666-0590. And you talking about the Knicks immediately reminded me of, it's weird because I don't know if I bring up these other comics. I don't know whether you
don't
like
worry.
them or not.
You can do it.
I know you know them, but I don't want to like bring up someone that you got a thing
Like
with.
Slowly I Turn?
Exactly.
See, the kids today, I'm so old, nobody out there knows what Slowly I Turn
Come
means.
on.
That's my new thing, is to pretend I'm older than I am, but younger than I used to be. That's a song. I'm older than I once was. That's a Paul Simon song. It's the boxer. I'm younger than I used to be, but that's not unusual.
That's on the boxer.
It is. After change is upon change. He added another verse to that song. Yeah, he did.
All right, okay. Sure.
Sure, Andy.
I was going to bring up Paul Reiser because I remember that Paul Reiser used to always talk about Dave DeBusschere, and I thought, why is this guy so firmly implanted in his mind? And that's why, right?
He's the exact same age I am. We went to the same school. I don't want to brag. I went to the State University of New York at Binghamton.
All right.
I don't bring it up to make others feel bad.
No, I know. You know what? SUNY Binghamton's a pretty big deal.
It's a pretty big deal. Or you might call, what's a great school when they have another name that's also known as, or you might call it Harper College.
All right.
So, and I went to school with Paul Reiser. And after college, I didn't become a comedian. First, I was a musician. But Paul Reiser, he was like in diner almost like within minutes, it seemed like.
Yeah. Right?
So,
83 or something like that.
Now, of course, I've been in no movies. But back then, I hadn't been in any movies. But now, of course, after all these years, no movies. But
Same as me.
Same as you, but Dave DeBusschere, Dollar Bill Bradley, Walt Bellamy, Earl of Pearl Monroe, Walt Frazier. And I moved out to L.A. in 78. And then that's just when Magic Johnson came up. So I was in love. And then it wasn't like I was a turncoat. I always rooted for the Knicks. But the 80s Lakers, to me, were very similar to the 60s, 70s Knicks.
I have no frame of references for the 60s or 70s Knicks. It's a little before my
Willis
time.
Reed?
But yeah, see, those are the guys I've heard of. Walt Frazier, Willis Reed, Earl Monroe. Dave DeBusschere, not so much until I heard Reiser talking about him.
Well, he was great, Dave DeBusschere, and he had a decent shot. I mean, he had a great shot. He was great. And also Bill Bradley, who was a Rhodes Scholar.
Wow. And now a congressman, right?
And he only ran for president, too. I think he was Senator Bill Bradley.
Right, yeah.
And they called him Dollar Bill Bradley. I don't know why they called him Dollar Bill Bradley. Maybe that's what players got paid then. I don't know.
Because he was money.
Exactly.
Right?
None of this is from, if anybody out there is thinking, is this his act? No, this is not my act.
No,
this is me being conversational.
Sports here. That's right. There's no rage coming from Andy Kindler, which I enjoy greatly. Thank you for sparing us that. All right. But as a New York sports fan, even though you went to L.A. and you adopted the Lakers, I'm assuming that since you were, I don't know. I was going to say I'm assuming that since the Yankees and Dodgers played in the 3 World Series from 77 to 81, that you wouldn't be able to adopt the Dodgers. But when you were in your formative years, like from the mid-'60s to the mid-'70s, the Yankees were terrible. And you were a Mets fan anyway.
I was a Mets fan. I hated the Yankees. And then I remember coming out to L.A. For some reason, I hated the Dodgers when they were in Brooklyn because my brother's friend Kenny would just torture me.
All right.
Like, he's like, oh, your team stinks. And although I did resonate with Sandy Koufax, who sat out Yom Kippur, but I did like and I remember coming out to L.A. and it wasn't long after that Kirk Gibson hit that home run where he's
88.
That's right. So, that's I guess 10 years. So, but the I think it was exciting. I got to do for David Letterman. I got to do spring training for the Yankees.
Really?
Though
Cover spring training.
I wanted to do it for the Mets, but I didn't care.
Was that in Tampa or Lauderdale?
It's all I know is it's the George Steinbrenner Stadium. Where is that?
It's Tampa.
Yeah. And I got to be in a batting cage.
Wow.
I mean, it was unbelievable. I got to talk to Derek Jeter.
I love him so much.
Well, I said to Derek Jeter, I go, boy, I'm going to need an apple box to be at your height. He looked at me like he didn't know what apple box meant.
I'm sure.
But I think it was more like but he was very nice to my wife.
Well, that's
never forget
good.
that. He was like, are you okay? And she had hurt her leg.
Not very nice to Ken Huckabee, the Blue Jays catcher, who separated his shoulder.
What did he do?
Separated Jeter's shoulder. This is one of the big memories, and everybody says, I hate Derek Jeter. I don't hate Derek Jeter. I just don't deify Derek Jeter. But opening day 02, 03, I don't remember. Derek Jeter was going to third. on a hit, and Ken Huckabee, who was a Blue Jays catcher, had to go cover third for some strange reason. And the throw in took him up in the air. And when he came down with his shin guard on Jeter's shoulder, separated his shoulder. And Jeter missed like a couple of months, I think, that year. And Huckabee was mortified and so upset and apologetic and whatever. Jeter wouldn't take his phone call.
Are you kidding me?
Oh.
I'm going to have to call Derek Jeter.
Yeah, that's right, please.
Oh my, that's not right. Did they ever at some point?
Nope.
Or no, you got to dislike well, Jeter doesn't seem that lovable. I can never like the Yankees, although I love the name Joe Pepitone, and one of my favorite comics is Eddie Pepitone, but they're not related at all.
Oh, that's a shame because they could have got you tickets or something.
But that sounds terrible. And you know who was cool? Mark Teixeira was very cool.
Yeah?
He was very funny.
I never got to know Mark Teixeira. I mean, we have very fleeting, like they come in 9 times a year, and we're spending all this time with the Blue Jays. I hope you people out there are enjoying this. Oh, we got a tweet that says, "Oh, this is great. That's awesome."
That's good. That's better than most of the tweets I usually get.
That's right.
Which are from angry atheists.
See, it's it's nice to go off topic every once in a while, especially on a Wednesday night in the last week of the season with Andy Kindler. And as I mentioned earlier, just to get a little piece of the CV, Andy has done the State of the Industry of Comedy address at Just for Laughs Montreal for 22 years. I watched you on Mark Maron's show on IFC, which is terrific. Eddie Pepitone had a great turn on that one too.
That was my favorite episode. That was the only time I've been in where it was doing some serious acting. We had to go in and discover Eddie Pepitone's dead body.
Spoiler alert! It was 3 years ago.
I don't think he was Eddie Pepitone though, right? He was
somebody else.
Comic.
Yeah. And some of our younger listeners and my children will remember you from Wizards of Waverly Place.
I played Chancellor Rudy Tootie Tootie, and I'm also the last voice you hear from the entire series. I did a additional dialogue recorded. I don't want to alienate people with all the lingo, and I said, "Well, that's been our show. Good night."
Wow.
So it's very, very, very.
How does a stand-up get a gig like a family network, a Disney network? I don't know what network it was on in the States. Television show.
What happened was there was a writer's strike, and I forget the year. I think it was right around when the economy busted, and so a lot of so that kind of changed the stuff that was made, and so there were less sitcoms, and then when they came back up, a lot of people were writing. They had a lot of sitcom writers writing for these kids shows.
All right,
and also just some of these writers or producers in that area, they're also comedy fans too. So I had so much fun doing that. That was great.
That's great. We're with Andy Kindler here. There's so much I want to talk to you about in the few minutes, and I thank you so much for all this time that you're spending. I figured you'd want to be 5 minutes and get out. But,
because of all the paparazzi. And please, people, with the paparazzi, and
lay off them.
Please. You know what I do when I check into a hotel? To avoid attention, I check in under my own name. That's from my act, folks.
That's
right
good stuff.
From my act.
I thought you were going to say you check in under Ricky Gervais.
But Fancy Pants was mad at me. Fancy Pants
at Fancy Pants on Twitter.
We made up.
But and that's something that's almost impossible to do.
Make up on
Twitter or to get someone to see your point of view on Twitter.
I've apologized on Twitter. How many people do that?
Nobody does that.
I'm not a saint, but I'm as close to a saint as you could get. And I was very close to being a professional athlete until I stopped growing and I was slowed down.
Yeah, that's something that tends to get in a lot of people's way as far as athletics go.
This is an actual true story. When I was playing softball when I was 12 years old, 11 years old, whatever it was, ball came and hit to me, and it was like a lazy pop fly. I dropped it. I'm not lying. To avoid embarrassment, I dropped to the ground and pretended to be knocked out.
Oh.
And they carried me off the field to a round of applause.
That is phenomenal.
I felt terrible for years.
That's great. And then you know what? And that brings a lot of comics have those stories. Mark Maron does the whole Fat Mark in center field when he was a kid story. And of course, immediately when you said a fly ball hit to me in the outfield, I'm thinking of Les Nessman. Back on KRP.
That's right.
Which was amazing. Oh, we have someone wants to talk to
this
Andy
is exciting.
Kindler.
It could be my wife or my mother.
Ray is in Richmond Hill, so probably neither one of those things. Ray, say hello to Andy Kindler.
Hey, Andy, how you doing? I could say, "Hey, Andy, you owe me money," but I'm not going to say that. Hey, Andy, look, I was a little kid of maybe 12, 13 years old at the time. I remember watching that Knicks game when they won the championship. And were you at that game at MSG that night?
No, I've never been to the only games I went to were Mets games and Jets games. I had never been to a professional basketball game until here comes the name dropping. Here comes the name dropping. Zach Galifianakis took me to a Lakers game once.
Oh yeah, because I remember that game when Willis Reed, he got injured and everybody felt like he was done, and he comes out of the tunnel and the MSG crowd just goes ballistic.
Game 7, that's right, and he came out and he played for a few minutes. Oh man.
One of my favorite players at the time when I was a kid was Walt Frazier, and he was a character. Boy, he had an entourage. Like, he was Mr. Everything in New York City at the time. I can remember every time he used to come to a game, he used to wear these flashy clothes and everything. He was. Did you ever meet Walt Frazier?
No, I haven't met him. You know what I want to meet is who sounds like fun is Keith Hernandez. Is who I want to meet.
He does sound like fun.
But Frazier used to do a thing whenever he would fall down.
Right.
He would take his time getting up. It was like the whole world stopped, and it was like he got up looking cool. Yeah, you know, nothing could ruffle. But Earl the Pearl Monroe, I didn't name him that. But
well, he got him from the Baltimore Bullets, and he was a hell of a player. But going back quickly to the '69 Amazing Mets, God, some of those catches he also Juan Swoboda, all those other guys were just like, you couldn't believe those guys caught those balls because they weren't really great outfielders. But they were, for that series, they were just like, it was like divine intervention, for God's sake.
Well, I've seen something on YouTube where it's Ron Swoboda doing the play-by-play of him catching the ball. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, anyways, hey, Andy, great talking to you, and hope you have a great stay in TO, buddy.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate the call. I got a story for you. I don't know if you know this one already. You mentioned Sandy Koufax. You mentioned Yom Kippur, which for those who are unaware, is the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. And Sandy Koufax did not pitch in the World Series on Yom Kippur. Don Drysdale pitched instead. And the story goes, and I don't have the game in front of me, that Drysdale got lit up and was just terrible. And Walter Alston came out to the mound to get him. And Drysdale hands him the ball and says, "Bet you wish I was Jewish too."
Oh man, he was a character too. Don Drysdale. Now, when I was a kid, they used to have these commercials for Vitalis, which was like a
tonic
for your hair.
All right.
And so they come out to the mound and they go, "Hey, you put some stuff on the ball." He shows to the entire crowd it's Vitalis, which couldn't be greasy.
Aha, because it's not greasy. And now we got athletes taking Propecia, which is
I take Propecia.
Yeah, but you don't take it to mask steroids. It does that too.
Oh, I tried.
If you wanted, you could chew a little stanozolol or some nandrolone, and since you're taking Propecia, no one would ever find it.
Well, I did try steroids for comedy, and the only thing that happened was I bombed aggressively.
Beautiful.
Oh, but is that true that you can hide?
Yeah, that's a masking agent.
Beautiful.
We got 3 minutes left.
I have a masking agent.
Oh, he booked you here at the alternative show.
Exactly. 3 minutes left. I knew it would go by too fast.
Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. We do. There's another caller here.
Let's do it.
So we got to take him quick, though. Alan, one of our all-time regulars here on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Alan, you got like a minute and a half. Say hi to Andy Kindler.
Hi, Andy.
How are you?
Good. Do you remember the old Madison Square Garden on 49th Street? And do you remember Ebbets Field? I was at both of them, and the one at 49th Street, Madison Square Garden, there was no partition, and the penalty box was located right in the crowd, and Lou Fontanato was constantly fighting with the crowd all the time.
And would I have seen the Rangers? No, when I saw the Rangers, I don't know if it was at the old Madison Square Garden though. When I saw them, and Ebbets Field, I was too young. But did you see that documentary where they showed how kind of New York? It was always like when I was a kid. It was like he left, right? They said he left Walter Austin, but then you see that they kind of pushed him out. Like the developers in New York, he wanted certain things done, and it kind of like not forced him, but
really, the
didn't
O'Malley's
make him
to
happy.
Take the Dodgers.
Yeah,
wow.
To take him out to L.A.
I did not know that. Thank you for the call, Alan. I don't know quite how to wrap this up in a minute and a half because I have so many more things that I want to ask you. But I guess what we'll wrap it up with by plugging your shows again. And I want to go see at least one. I'll probably come down. I'm going to see Jen Kirkman tomorrow. It's an
Oh,
off
that
day,
would be
so we'll
great.
come down and see you
Yeah,
after.
that would be fantastic.
Jen Kirkman talked about how much she loves your podcast. I saw on
I
a
have
tweet here.
I have a podcast, Thought Spiral. I've been on everybody. I was like, I think I've won the podcast guest award, but now I'm hosting a podcast. It's called Thought Spiral, and all of a sudden it's hard now to be a. See, what you do is hard, very hard.
Really?
Because you have
You
to.
see-
You're
it's so
listening
easy
to,
what you're
but
doing.
I'm really, because I have ADD and OCD. I'm really concentrating to listen. Normally, when I act, I just wait for the other person's lips to stop.
Really? And then you say what you have to say.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And try to avoid looking down the barrel of the camera. That's all.
It sounds like the easiest thing in the world. So the Just for Laughs alternative comedy show starts at 11:59 p.m. tonight, tomorrow, Friday and Saturday.
At Second City.
At Second City, which is on Blue Jays Way, right down near the ballpark. Yeah, you'll love that. Such a pleasure. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much
having
for doing
me, man.
this.
This is great.
This is amazing.
Dream come true.
I love it. That's Andy Kindler. The Blue Jays are off tomorrow. So you get no Blue Jays baseball tomorrow, but back Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock, Joe Biagini and Masahiro Tanaka. We will see you then. Good night.